Boom! Welcome into Sportsbet Betting Insight today, Tuesday, March 28th. Pauly and Teddy, SBRpicks.com, big game breakdown. Spurs and the Wizards and the Bucks start a big West Coast road trip against the Clippers. Rob Veno to talk baseball, two-parter. Part one today, great information, and we turn on the shot clock and the play of the day before we get out of here. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Great job by Fultz. He's back. The shot wasn't hideous like we've seen previous videos before. With his horrible form, he had 10 points and 8 assists, and once again, the Sixers ran somebody out in the second half. 16-1 run straight up at home. They were down at the half and then blitzed the Nuggets. This was a bad bet and bad for the books because the Nuggets took money, but they steamed that over big time, Teddy.
Yeah. Denver bet from +6 to +4.5. That was a bad bet. Obviously, Philly ran him out of the gym. Although the Fultz information, again, we previewed this game on the show yesterday. The Fultz information was not out. So I'm not surprised Denver took money. That being said, the Nuggets money all wrong side. The over was the right side. Bettors cashed in there, certainly on that one. And when we talk about those second half runs for Philadelphia, last two games coming out of halftime, worth noting, second half bettors. 20-4 run out of the gate in the third quarter against the T-Wolves. 20-5 run out of the gate in the third quarter against the Nuggets last night. That is two blowouts over two playoff teams. All of a sudden, Philly's getting really, really interesting. You mentioned with Fultz back in the lineup, the number one overall pick. Philly, there's no dominant team in the Eastern Conference. Maybe the 76ers are that team. They certainly played like it last night.
And they have 7 guys in double figures, something like that. They have weapons, man, and they're tough. And again, they got to sit people because it was a blowout. Bad for the books. Just get the win and get out of there. Celtics Suns 210 down to 207. Celtics win again without Kyrie.
Yeah, I mean, the heavy steam on the under in that ball game. Not like Phoenix is doing anything. So it's a matter of how Boston wants to play it. And the Celtics, a classic example of a team. All they want to do right now is grind out wins and move on. Even with all the injuries, Brad Stevens had 10 different players get at least 16 and a half minutes of playing time last night. Game stays under. Steam came in on the under. That's a bad result for the bookmaker.
How about Tankapalooza? What happened to the T-Wolves? 14-point favorites at home, lost to the Grizzlies and scored 11 points in the fourth quarter. The Knicks went to overtime against Charlotte, so that didn't work last night, at least an ATS standpoint. And then if you've been, if you parlay some of these big favorites on the money line, you got burned with Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, it was not a good night to fade the tankers in the NBA. As you mentioned, the Knicks going to overtime as double-digit dogs. The Grizzlies with a straight-up win as double-digit dogs. The Suns with the point spread cover as double-digit dogs, all against trying to make the playoffs or trying for their playoff seeding type of teams. The betting markets are the great equalizer, Pauly, and even the worst teams are going to cover some point spreads.
Amen, brother. Playoffs start April 11th. How about a little hockey? And they're taking a bath here in Las Vegas with a local team. More on that in a second. The Kings were bet up from $2 to $2.60. The public likes to play that. Well, they have to win, right? And they beat Calgary 3-0, a dead team there, LA at home. Two teams, though, were $3 in the NHL, and they lost. Toronto and Tampa Bay, both at home. They got beat. So careful out there laying that big wood as you went down in flames. And it's official with the win last night against Colorado, 4-1. They were as high as 10-1 to make the playoffs. The Golden Knights have 104 points, whatever it is. They clinch a playoff spot. They have a 6-point lead over San Jose with 6 left. They were as high as 200-1 to win the division, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, 100-1 widely available to win the division. Yes. But we got to talk about the two big chalks that went down. Toronto and Tampa Bay, both -$3. Neither one comes away with a victory. When you start getting into those $3 ranges, whether it's baseball, whether it's hockey, tread carefully. I'll just leave it like that. Last night, a very bad night for chalk layers in the NHL, with the exception of all those who were on the Kings. That's a bad result for the books.
And if you have deep pockets and you know your hockey, come out to Vegas. William Hill offering yes-no props on the Knights to win the conference and the Stanley Cup. Mercy, expansion team, 100 points and 100-1, 200-1 to win the division. It's 500-1 to win the cup. at some spots before the season started. Huge night in the NBA coming up next. For the first time since 2005, this late in the season, we have 6 games with playoff contenders going head-to-head. We'll get to that coming up on Sports Bit 2.0 on SBR Picks. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy straight ahead.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Real Sportsbet. He's at Teddy_covers. What a card in the association tonight. Most of these games mean something, and 6 games with teams with a winning record go head-to-head. They just played last week. Let's start with the Spurs and the Wizards. San Antonio's 1.5 and 202 on the road. 43-31 against 40-33. Last Wednesday, they were laying 5.5. They won by 8, but they led 95-74 with 3:30 left. And the Wizards without Wall, remember that was a cute story about sharing the ball, and he wasn't getting people involved, and we're having a lot of fun. Well, they were 10-3 straight up in ATS. Now, the last 12 without Wall, 4-8 straight up, and 3-8-1 ATS, and they just lost at home to the Knicks, Teddy.
Yeah, and that was a pretty ugly performance.
Yes.
When you talk about the meeting last Wednesday, the Spurs, again, they were minus 5.5 at home. They won that game by 8. But very misleading final score. They were up by 21 with less than 4 to play in that contest, even though they only won by 8. San Antonio dominated the game last Wednesday. Let's throw that graphic up with and without John Wall again, for the Wizards. The first 13 games without Wall, they were great. The last dozen. And look at that, 4-8 straight up. The 8 losses, 4 of them have come when they were favored. So they 4 outright losses when they were favored, and favored twice in 2 games that went to OT. They could easily be 2-10 right now, straight up in their last dozen ball games. They just won a couple of overtime games. And boy, that loss to the Knicks. I don't have a graphic. Here's a quote from Bradley Beal. Quote, "We acted like we didn't give a damn, honestly. We thought we could just show up and play because they don't have anything to play for. We just thought it was going to be a cakewalk, and they just smacked us in the mouth." No show against the Knicks. Step-up spot here against the Spurs. And John Wall, he's at least on the horizon now. He just went through his first full practice. There's no timetable set for his return. Scott Brooks is anxiously anticipating John Wall being back. Quote, "He brings the juice. He brings the energy level up. We practice pretty hard, and our guys have great habits. When you're talking about one of the best players in the leagues, that raises the level in the gym. The awareness level's up, the energy, the attention to detail, everything is up. When you're going against him, you better be locked in because it can put you in some pretty embarrassing positions." No question right now, Washington trying to hang on until Wall gets back. He's not going to be back in the lineup against San Antonio tonight.
And you have the Spurs. This West is so stacked. Oklahoma has OKC has 31 losses. New Orleans, San Antonio also 31 losses. The Jazz have 32, and Minnesota has 33. So it's a tough schedule coming up for the Spurs as well. And they just went 6-0 on that homestand, the big overtime win against the Jazz. But they lost at Milwaukee on Sunday. They are 1-8 straight up. Their last 9 on the road. Pop on the turnaround after the 3-11 slide. Quote, "I think we lost enough to refocus." As simple as that sounds. We talked about the defense. We worked on it in shoot-arounds when we didn't have practices. They're an intelligent group. They realize if we don't get that back together, we've got nothing because we slip out offensively. You also have the issue with Kawhi Leonard where they had that team meeting, which Steven Jackson is now saying Pop ordered that, and Parker and Ginobili going at it, and they were animated and yelling at each other, and Kawhi wouldn't give in and said, "Hey, I don't want to come back. I'm not ready." So maybe that's the kind of team is rallying around that as well. But how about Aldridge? He's been a beast with this 6-1 run. Look at his numbers. Look at this graphic. 24, 25, 39, 33, 27, 45, and 34 points. And check out the plus minus in those games. The problem is they're plus 95 with him in those 7 games. They're minus 10 when he's sitting. He's been huge, but they're peaking at the right time. But I am concerned here, and it's a tough handicap because remember, the Wizards were coming off a home loss when they played the Knicks and no-showed. So I don't know where their heads are at, as they're in the 6th seed right now. They might get the 8 if they're not careful. I don't think the 4 and 5 are doable, that they're not going to catch Philly with an easy schedule in Indiana as well. So Spurs with their issues on the road, that's a tough handicap, Teddy, laying 1.5.
It is. I know that I'm reluctant to take San Antonio in this spot. And you nailed it when you talked about Aldridge. Show that graphic one more time with LaMarcus Aldridge during this impressive run for San Antonio. And number one, they haven't been beating a whole lot of good teams. A whole lot of teams, I shouldn't say they haven't been beating a whole lot of teams playing well during this span. But number two, man, the plus-minus minutes for Aldridge. You said it, plus 95 with him on the floor, minus 10 when he's sitting during a span where they went 6-1. The Wizards can match up with LaMarcus Aldridge fairly well. And I know Washington was a no-show against the Knicks. I'm generally interested in teams off a bad loss like the one they suffered where everyone's starting to point fingers. I don't know Washington's going to fall apart. I think this might be a step-up spot for the Wizards in a game against a San Antonio team that may be playing better now, but they still haven't solved the riddle of how to win on the highway so far this season.
Amen, brother. A lot on the line here. Bucks and Clippers now. The nightcap, thanks to Intertops, by the way, 22 years online, over 4,000 daily wagers, sign up, deposit, and win. Bucks and the Clippers. Clippers 3 at home, 225 the total. Milwaukee starts a huge West game roadie. Clippers, Lakers, Golden State, and Denver. Both teams 39-34. Clippers just trying to hang on. Doc Rivers doing a good job. They got the big win Sunday in Toronto. Milwaukee is a half game ahead of Miami for the 7, which is a big deal because you might get Boston. You probably get Boston and no Kyrie. That could happen. But they just played last week. Greek Freak got hurt early and missed the entire second half. Clippers killed them on the boards. And DeAndre had 25 and 22 in the win. They led by 19 in the fourth quarter. Milwaukee cut it to 6, and then Rivers hit a couple shots, and they won the game. So it's a key spot here where I give the Clippers full marks that they're in this thing. And I tell you, the way Minnesota's playing and the fact that they have 2 more left against Denver, that 8 seed's wide open now in the West.
It is. And of course, you know, the TNT nightcap tonight, and you mentioned right at the top, same record for these two teams. Milwaukee, 39-34. The Clippers, 39-34. The power ratings with the Bucks, or with the Clips laying 3 at home, I should say, saying these two teams essentially even. And yet, in the Eastern Conference, 39-34, the Bucks are a lock. They're in. You know, they're only 1 game out of the 6 seed. For the Clips, you know, they're still 1 game behind Denver for the 9 seed with the same record. 2.5 games out of the 8. So 39-34, 2 teams power rated equally, yet looking at very different postseason futures as a result. You talked about the meeting last Wednesday where Greek Freak got hurt. What, just 16 minutes of playing time in that contest. And after he was out, you talked about the domination. They were, plus 14 on the boards. But I worry about the spot here for the Clips. They've only had 1 day off returning home after a 4 games and 6 nights road trip. And they're coming off, I could say it was an impressive win. They won straight up at Toronto to close out that trip. So I worry about the focus level here. And that was a big rally to win against the Raptors. They were down big early in that game. And then Lou Williams with 18 points by himself in the fourth quarter. Doc Rivers, quote, "It makes it a lot easier to run the offense." It was, give it to Lou, basically.
Yeah. I think he's an overrated coach, but he's doing a hell of a job this year. 18 different players have started. DeAndre and Rivers have started, only guys who have started at least half the games. Now you have Milwaukee, which you can't keep blaming the coach, right? Jason Kidd was terrible this year, but he gets whacked, and they got off to a good start without him. Well, now they're struggling, and it's been maybe minutes, no defense to speak of as well. Eastern Conference, most minutes post-All-Star break. LeBron leads the way, 37.2, then Beal. Then the Greek Freak, Middleton, and Bledsoe checks in at 14th, and they're wearing down on defense. 8 straight overs, although the pace has been the same. But as always on the shows, we use points per 100 possessions with defensive efficiency numbers. Pre-break straight up 32 and 25, giving up 106. Post-break 7 and 9, 110.4. Look at that. That's atrocious. They can't get any stops. That's cause for concern, definitely, with Milwaukee, especially when you're going on this road trip against every team you're going to match up with that can score.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Bucks are a team we haven't been very high on at all here on SportsBit. After the Prunty 4-kid switch, Milwaukee went on a little run. And we were saying, oh, look at the Bucks. But right here on SportsBit, we were saying, look who the Bucks have been beating. They just faced literally the weakest schedule you can imagine at an NBA level. And ever since it's toughened up, Milwaukee has begun losing again. You talked about the minutes, you know, with Greek Freak, Middleton, and Bledsoe, all in the top 15 in minutes since the All-Star break. A team that's wearing down very clearly right now. You know, the pace, you said it. The pace numbers are comparable, and yet 8 straight overs for Milwaukee. Here's a Clips team. You talk about Doc Rivers, and a guy that we don't love. Rivers, you make a strong case coach of the year this year with the Clips. 18 different guys. You said it. 18 different guys in the starting lineup, Pauly. And yet, here are the Clips, very much in playoff contention and laying points to a playoff caliber team at home tonight.
Yep. Gallinari banged up, Beverly out for the year. Everything worked out, but I still can't believe the Rockets included Lou Williams in that Paul trade, that they gave up so much. But a great job by Doc that they're in this with less than 10 games left. Up next, hey, the opening day is Thursday. So we'll talk to Rob Veno, baseball expert, up next. 2 parts. Part 1 coming up today. And then we turn on the shot clock. Hedging advice, Loyola Chicago tickets, Michigan tickets, and the play of the day on SportsBit 2.0. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
It's deep dive time here on SportsBit, and we do it at least once or twice a year. I like to do it more often when we can, but I enjoy bringing in Rob Veno from Rob Veno Sports and SportsMemo.com to do this particular segment because, quite frankly, I don't think there's anyone that does it better. Rob Veno, welcome to the program. How was your off season in MLB?
How are you today, Teddy? Yeah, it's and this baseball season creeps upon us so much quicker nowadays. My goodness. Thursday opening day, still involved in other sports, but hey, you have to take the time to go ahead and get ready for the opening of the season. Looks like we have a pretty good grasp of what's going to go on here, Teddy. We'll share a little bit of that with the listeners today.
Sure, absolutely. And the goal for this show, we got 2 deep dives, one for today, one for tomorrow. Everybody you talk to is concentrating starting pitching, who's got the best rotation, who's got the guys, who's got the prospects. The marketplace is so focused on starting pitching. And you'll see it here on SportsBit as we break down the games. We're going to break down the starting pitching matchups as much as anybody else. That's how the lines are set. So we talk about where are the edges that bettors can find. Well, one edge is lineups. Another edge is bullpens. Rob Veno is going to break them down both. Today's deep dive, all about the lineups for the 2018 MLB season. And Rob, we're not talking about who's going to hit the most runs or score the most runs or any of that. We're talking about from a value standpoint, who the markets are looking at and says, well, this lineup might be better than they think it is. Oh, this lineup might not be quite as good as the markets are pricing it. Let's start with the first team you asked me to talk about, and that's a team that I've seen getting a fair bit of play in the futures markets this spring, the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, Teddy, and we'll come at this lineup from the perspective of an over team this year. You know, it's interesting to me that the Milwaukee Brewers last year were 68 and 87 as far as over-under is concerned, a fairly heavy under team in 2017. I'm going to take the assumption that the baseline for this team is going to be your basic 9.5. And you add those 2 players in that they acquired in the offseason, Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain, to the top of the lineup. Christian Yelich obviously developing a little more power along with the speed and the average. Cain the same, followed by just a plethora of solid RBI hitters. I think this lineup, obviously I'm not alone in that thought. I think the lineup is going to be even more dynamic than last year. The reason why you can play them to the over, Teddy, is you have to combine the lineup with the starting pitching and the bullpen. In this case, the starting pitching without Jimmy Nelson until maybe mid-July, I have a feeling that Milwaukee's bullpen, which is pretty good depth-wise, but I think they're going to be used up quite early and often. You don't see too many starters on this starting pitching rotation that are going to get you more than 5 innings, maybe 6 tops. You're talking about 3 innings plus a night for a bullpen. That adds to the total, obviously. So we're going to take this lineup that's been much improved, combine it with the lack of starting pitching, maybe the wear on the bullpen, and look at Milwaukee as an over team this season.
We've got 5 minutes here with Rob Veno doing a deep dive talking about MLB lineups with the markets focusing on pitching we're focusing on hitting today. And Rob just said the Brewers are a team we might want to look to bet over the total. Their lineup's going to be pretty potent. Let's talk about another team that was a pretty good under squad last year that may not be that in 2018. That, of course, the Philadelphia Phillies, a team that has been heavy on prospects for years. You think this year, offensively, the Phillies are primed to break out?
And I think in the Phillies case, Teddy, the Phillies offensive breakout will equate to more wins. So we'll be playing them as a side quite a bit this year, no matter who's on the mound for them. But you just take a look at the young nucleus. The addition here is Carlos Santana from the Indians. Santana brings that veteran, patient hitter to what's an aggressive young lineup. They're going to stick Santana in the 2-hole. You have a lineup here, Teddy, 1 through 6. That potentially could all hit 300 as far as batting average is concerned. And we saw what Rhys Hoskins did as far as power numbers go last year. Aaron Altier, Nick Williams, also good power guys. Jorge Alfaro, the new catcher for this team, was the prize prospect in the Cole Hamels trade, the number 1 prospect in the Phillies organization. Some pop there as well. I really think the Phillies lineup is going to add to the amount of games they win this year. They're 66 and 96 last year. And we'll be playing the Phillies on a regular basis here. Don't see the price tag hurting us too much with the Phils.
We're talking with Rob Veno from Rob Veno Sports and SportsMemo.com. MLB expert, legitimate. I mean, Rob, how long have you been doing this? 30 years? You know your bases pretty darn well.
Yeah, we'll say since 1991 is 27 years. Yeah, how about that, Teddy? 27 years, wow.
You're getting there. Let's talk the Seattle Mariners, because the Mariners certainly a team that, I don't know if they underachieved last year. Let's call them underachievers last year. They seem to be underachievers every year, but they're always right there. This year, you think Seattle has the pop to get over the hump?
Yeah, and I think the main reason for my optimism is D. Gordon at the top of the lineup. It's something that they haven't had in quite a while, and the American League doesn't use that often. The threat of speed at the top of the lineup. D. Gordon now pushes Gene Segura down to the 2-hole, and then you're followed by a bunch of power hitters in Cano and Cruz and Seager. Ryan Healy from the A's. A lot of people expect him to be a big-time power hitter. He's only had 2 years in the major leagues. But 1-9, this is a very, very solid lineup. And like the Phillies, I couldn't make a difference to only choose one, but I think that their lineup equates to more wins. A 78 and 84 team last year. Probably be on the Mariners quite a bit this year. I see them as a well above 500 team, even though they're in that division with the Astros. I think they could push Houston. So the Mariners lineup should make them a good side play this season.
One team to talk about when it comes to bet against for lineups, and this is a team with a pretty potent reputation and a lot of big bats that we look at, they go, wow, you want to bet against this squad? Toronto, the Blue Jays, have made your list.
They did, Teddy, and they made my list as an under team. I'll play the Blue Jays under, maybe fade them a little bit as well, but mainly as an under. I'll single out 4 guys for you. Leadoff hitter, Curtis Granderson. He's hit 260 one time in the last 7 years. He's got an OBP of 335 or less in 9 of his last 11 years. That's your new leadoff hitter. Horrible season last year, especially the second half with the Dodgers. I'll give you Travis and Donaldson at 2 and 3. I'm going to consider Justin Smoak's season last year an aberration. Had absolutely nothing or did nothing in 6 years prior to last year to, forecast that last year was coming. I say Smoak regresses. Russell Martin, a 35-year-old catcher. If you take out his 2014 season with Pittsburgh, you'll get over the last 6 years batting averages of 240 or less. 4 on-base percentages of 329 or less. We're not high on Martin in the 5-hole. Kendrys Morales, home runs okay. Randall Grichuk, another guy, a lot of potential. Hasn't put it together on the field yet. On-base percentage under 300 2 years straight. Diaz and Pilar close it out. I just don't think this lineup has anything to it, Teddy. It's far cry from what it was a couple of seasons ago when they made the playoffs. We'll play the Blue Jays under the total. And like I say, potential fade as well.
Toronto Blue Jays is a bet against team and a team to bet under the total. Thank you, Rob Veno. Rob, where do folks find you? What you got on Twitter? Give a little promo love for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, Teddy. Obviously, daily plays each and every day. SportsMemo.com. Just check that homepage. Been there for a bunch of years now. RobVenoSports.com. You can go to the homepage of that website, get a lot of statistical information that you might not find anywhere else. At Twitter, at Rob Veno Sports. Pretty simple, right? At Rob Veno Sports, you can find any activity that I might have on Twitter. Always sticking to the sports with my activity on Twitter, Teddy. We're not ranging too far there.
Yeah, no obscure political commentary from Mr. Veno's Twitter profile. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll do it again, part 2 tomorrow. We're talking about bullpens, overvalued and undervalued, right here on SportsBit. Betting Insight today from SBRpicks.com.
All right, that time of year, baseball right around the corner. Part 2 tomorrow, thanks to Rob Veno with a little baseball segment. Time to turn on the shot clock. This is where we differ, a little back and forth. Michigan tickets out there as high as 200-1, and Loyola Chicago. One guy grabbed them at 9,999-1 to win it all. They were 300-1 when the tournament started at most places. Teddy, your advice for people hedging or here with Michigan and Loyola tickets in their pocket?
Real simple, okay? When you're talking about hedging strategies, let's get that shot clock on. Hedging strategies, real simple. Don't hedge unless you like the new wager that you're going to be making. That's all I can say. If you liked Michigan at 200-1, great number, all right? If you like Loyola in the game, you take some Loyola money line. If you don't like Loyola in the game, you don't make the bet. You let your future ride. Where you get the biggest payoffs is where you're not hedging away half your profits before it comes through. You took a long shot, take your long shot, but don't bet against that long shot unless you legitimately like the other side.
All right. Nobody knows anything, right? A 16 beats a 1. Cincinnati's down 22 with 10 minutes left. Nick Foles just won the Super Bowl and scored 40 points in a Super Bowl and had the ring. You have to lock in a profit. I mean, if you had Loyola 100-1 to win the region and you're a pick 'em essentially against Kansas State, you have to lock in a profit unless you have a ton of money and don't care. You must lock in a profit because crazy shit happens. It's sports. It's a soap opera for men, but you never know. Central Florida dominated Auburn in a bowl game, right? I mean, you saw that in the trenches too. So anything can happen. If you have Michigan, Loyola, lock in a profit. I mean, if you had 100-1 as well, as 3 people did at William Hill, you must do that, in my opinion. Who knows? Even unless you're Derek Stevens, who has Michigan $1 million to win it all, I'd be disappointed if he does it because he has so much money. But to me, always have to lock in a profit. Even if you're talking about a 5-team parlay in the first 4 in as well. That's how I go about it. All right, money time, play of the day. We teased it earlier, back to the Clippers and the Bucks. 8 straight overs, Teddy. Let's make it 9. 225 the total, betting number 773, 774. It was a high-scoring affair the first time they played, and I think it's going to be a lot of points in this one as well. Plus all those numbers we gave you. Milwaukee can't get any stops, and they're tired, playing a lot of minutes. 110 points per 100 possessions here, post-All-Star break. Up and over the total. Let's make it 9 in a row for Milwaukee. Let's go over with the second half of the doubleheader on TNT. We'll recap the great card on tomorrow's show, part 2 with Rob Veno, and Final 4, all that coming up on deck. Follow us on Twitter at RealSportsBet and at Teddy_covers. It's SportsBit 2.0 on SBRpicks.com. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends we're back.